Good evening, good evening. Good evening. Yes, Manja, more than enough. Komal, I have sent it. Don't worry, I'll redo it. Redo it. Don't worry. I understand. Dudney leads to debt trap for viewers because they are given advances at a level at which is very low. After a point, they will not be able to produce at the same cost, and that will in turn into debt trap. No, Prerna, not necessarily. No, Aftab, you don't have to make running notes. You just have to concentrate in class. Yes, Seema. I think Seema and Rani were the two people who emailed me the social reform movement tables. So yeah, that was totally fine. NCRT PPT are enough for both films means, or I have to compulsory read. See, Ankita, the problem is that without Spectrum you or Bipin Chandra, you can't do it because NCRTs only have only specific topics. Perfect, Megha. Very good. I'll wait one more minute. Perfect, Ritu. Same here. Are the backstories of characters important behind every empire fall? No. That's also fine, Charan. Jyotiba Phule will go into neither. He's a depressed class movement personality. No, Ankita. Who is the real consolidator of British? All governor generals generally important. There's no one person who did it. Srilata, if you can do that, more than enough. More than enough. Good evening. Good evening. The quorum is not there still. Lok Hitwadi because Lok Hitwadi means the one who works for the good of the people. It is enough. Enough. We will cover peasant tribal. We should Vanchika reach there. We should reach there. It's totally on the pace. What is the difference between English and a British man? Same thing. Same thing. Exactly same thing. Moderate and later Mughals are of topic of medieval. Moderate means what? Moderates. Later Mughals are early modern. No manja, not. You need to read other things. They are separate things, Megha. Singh Sama movement will go into, we will discuss. That is Sikh reform. Ishita, in a way, yes. And that is why the Home Rule League movement came to India. Why majority of reformers for Bengal? Because Bengal education impact was very good. Modern education spread in Bengal very well. No issues. give the only PPTs are important. Again, Ankush, world history also what is given in the PPT is important, not backstories. Yeah, you should. It's a descriptive class. Is world wars come under world history? Yes. Kirti, you have to write your own research. Your own research. You have to research, go to the archive. Why everything starts in Bengal? Again, because the longest period, the Bengal sector was the one where the British survived the longest because of, and the impact was also the most resounding that way. Yes, you can, Soumya. Okay. Now, yesterday we discussed, Abe, that's a good thing or a bad thing? The book is not small, it's 600 pages. That is more than enough. For UPSC aspirant, that's more than enough. Now, when we talk about social reform movement, yesterday we did the reformists and we left one person, which is Vivekanand, because Vivekanand needed a little bit of time. And thereafter, we have to now go into the revivalists and specifically the Arya Samaj in that regard. So we were able to understand Raja Ram Mohan Roy, the Brahmo Samaj, Derozio. Over and above that, we did Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, Pratna Samaj. And this is where we had skipped this part because it needed time and it deserves more time than what we had that day. So therefore, the simple point which you now need to understand is Vivekanand is a very important personality generally. 1 second, I am getting my preview correct. 1 second, yeah. Now, why is that, or what is the connection of Ramakrishna Paramhans and Vivekanand? That way is very important. See, Ramakrishna Paramhans is a very important thinker. And Vivekanand lost his father at a very young age. And therefore, he went into the mentorship of Ramakrishna Paramhans. As a person, Ramakrishna Paramhans made a very, very important and valid point. And that was the core ideology which he propagated. His most important argument was that the only way you get salvation, moksha, the only way you get any form of happiness in life is through the service of people. Service of man was service of God. And if we live with millions in hunger and in ignorance, then we are the traitors and we are the problem. Salvation means moksha. Now, Ramakrishna Paramhans' basic idea was, if you want to service God, do good for the people. When you do good for the people, then you do good for God. And his argument was that if you are educated, if you have money, if you are very capable, and still you are allowing hunger and ignorance to exist, then you are the traitor, the dushman of humanity and of God. This is a very sophisticated understanding and quite important, because he is talking about something totally different, which is the fact that it's not that you have to service God through temples, giving donations to temples. And you would have seen this for sure, that people would be giving money to temples which are extremely rich, whilst people lie outside the same temple are starving of hunger, and people would rather do certain acts which would waste certain amount of resources, but people outside the same temple would be actually dying of their conditions in that regard. So we have this contrasting image in which we have these very prosperous temples, but also the people who are around that are the ones who suffer. So what Ramakrishna Paramhans would argue is that if you service the people rather than the God inside, It is the true service of God. Because if you are actually very capable, and you allow yourself to go to that temple and give crores of rupees, and still there are people who don't have 10 rupees to eat, then that is ignorance. And that is not true belief. Devotion is when you service people rather than the temples and the priests. And this is a very sophisticated understanding which will thereafter impact Swami Vivekananda. Now he will be born with his original name is Narendranath, and his father was a very successful lawyer, but will die at a very young age, and therefore he will become extremely disillusioned by society itself, and thereafter he will go under the mentorship of Ramakrishna Paramhans. And the point is, he is the one, after the death of Ramakrishna Paramhans in 1886, he will then travel the world, and he will be the one who will represent India in the Conference of Religions in the USA, in Chicago. And when he comes back, thereafter he will establish what is called the Belur Mutt, or the Ramakrishna Mission. So the Ramakrishna Mission was actually established by Swami Vivekananda based on the ideas of of Ramakrishna Paramhans, and it till today, this organization is extremely important and embodies the idea of service to people as service to God. Now, what is his basic ideology? What is the ideology of Swami Vivekananda? First is action. He was a very, very ardent follower and a proponent of the fact that only saying will not do anything. It is action which changes the world. He made a point that all religions are one. All religions are one. And over and above that, this is the idea which he gave in that world conference also, that the brothers and the sisters of the world, which is that everybody is connected that way. He said a very important line which a lot of people actually forget today. These two lines are never, we talk about Vivekanand quite a lot, but we never talk about these two lines. The first one being that no religion is different in its goal, and religious conversion was useless because all religions are the same. But his most important line, which people forget today, is he believed that only when Hinduism and Islam come together, that something can happen about India. India, the motherland, can only survive if the two major religions, if these two people come together. We are a strength, we are a nation to reckon, we are a nation which can do anything if we bring these two systems together. But if we tore apart ourselves on these two ideas, it will be very, very easy for someone to rule us, and that is what the British was doing. He, in a way, was the first nationalist who argued that we need to make sure that everybody is together. From condemning the caste system to the Hindu emphasis on rituals, ceremonies, and superstitions, he was the one who said is an anti-communalistic understanding. And while people love to quote Swami Vivekananda today, nobody talks about this aspect of Swami Vivekananda, that he talked about oneness of religion, but over and above that, the fact that India can only go forward if these two religions come together. Condemned is basically denounced. It's like people there. I don't know where you're getting that story from. I have no idea where you're getting that story. If this happens, our focus will shift towards what actually matters. That is true. Who was wealthy in this period except the British? There is a lot of people who are wealthy, zamindars, industrialists. There are multiple people who are a lot of money. Sure, Gib. I have no idea. The point is, Swami Vivekanand is quite different to other reformers in a way that he did not just talk about reform, he talked about something much bigger. And that ultra, or rather bigger perspective, is what makes him Swami Vivekananda. He was the first one to talk about, amongst all, that liberty, equality, and free thinking is important. And what he started is called Neo Vedanta or Vedantic philosophy, which is Upanishadic philosophy. Upanishadic philosophy. The word which is related to Swami Vivekananda is Neo Vedanta. Vedanta, as I told you, Vedo ka ant. Upanishads are a set of books which are the philosophy of the Vedas. He started Neo Vedanta, with a new Vedanta. And that new Vedanta is also based on worship as service to people. He worked for a better understanding of Hinduism as well as nationalism. He believed that only when we come together that we can defeat the British. Spirituality, Vyavhar, which is the way you conduct yourself, and Paramarth, which is the understanding of things, are very important for him. See, now what do you do with this information is you have to develop a core ideology of Swami Vivekananda. Paramhans is his name. Ramakrishna Paramhans. That is his name. Now, the ultimate goal of Swami Vivekananda was to crystallize Ramakrishna Paramhansa's understanding into the Ramakrishna mission, which will be established at Belur in 1897, and he will become the first president. And thereafter, they will now live to do the following. Until today, the Ramakrishna mission works for that. Vyavhar means behavior. Vedanta means an ideology which is based on Upanishads. Vedantic philosophy is Upanishadic philosophy, which is moving away from the Vedas, which is based on better understanding of oneself, spirituality. We'll discuss Vedanta. I will discuss Vedanta with you, which is in the art and cultures period, which is 6 schools of philosophy. Now, what was the mission? Realization of God is what they want. But they talk about yoga, they talk about harmony with other religions, and the most important, service to man is service to God, and therefore help the poor and the downtrodden. They also talked about the fact that the soul, the Atma, which is the man's true self, can be achieved by removing ignorance, which is ignorance of everything. Celibacy means not to marry. Now the point is, this means that they are talking about ignorance of the way we divide ourselves, the divisions which are there, and generally how we are ready to divide ourselves on different lines itself, be it religion, be it caste, be it creed. So as part of our painful journey through social reform movement, this is basically what you have to remember about Swami Vivekananda, which is very simply Neo-Vedantic philosophy, Ramakrishna mission, and over and above that, his concept of Hindu-Muslims coming together to go forward. Now, as I said, you just have to document it, and you just have to keep a basic idea of what he's trying to say. Service to nation is service to God. Service to people is service to God, is the word which the examiner will expect you to write. So were we so divided even during those times? Yes, obviously, that is how communism starts. Neo-Vedanta is the concept of, see, Vedanta as a philosophy existed since Shankara's period, of Ramanuja's period, which is the concept of removing everything, spirituality, meditation. But Neo-Vedanta is his understanding. New Vedanta, which is adding Vedanta and service to people. That is what it is. No, Vivekananda and Buddhist philosophy are not the same. Don't do that. Very different. Very, very, very different. If you don't know Buddhism, don't, because it's very easy to say that, but it is very fundamentally different, and the ideologies are also very different. Now, we have finished by this all the reformers, and we now move to revivalists. Now, please pay attention. The list is quite not long. You have Atmiya Samaj, Brahmo Samaj. Within Brahmo Samaj, 3 organizations: Derozio, Swami Vivekanand. Other than that, Pratna Samaj, and then Pandita Ramabai, Malabari, Deva Samaj, and the other Indian servants of Indian society and those nationalist institutions. Other than that, there the core understanding has to be Ramakrishna Mission, Vivekanand, the Brahmo Samaj, over and above the Pratna Samaj, and Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, Malabari, and Pandita Ramabai. If you can understand that much, then your job is already done. Now I want to move to revivalists and discuss the other side of the story. And in revivalists, there's only one major organization, which is RS Samaj. What about caste system at that time? It was very divided, very bad. Not as it is today. It is has become little diluted, but still equally bad in that way. But much, much, much more crystallized than what it is today. Ramakrishna Mission, as I said, there is no revision to be done. Service to nation, service to God, and the concept of uh, ignorance being removed. All religions are the same, and Hinduism and Islam has to come together to save this world, or to save our country in that regard. Now, are we all settled down? Can we start? Because a lot of you are talking about a lot of different things. A lot of different people are talking a lot of different things. I want to discuss the concept itself. Yes, because here what matters is revivalism and revivalist movement. Can we start? Yes or no? This was yesterday's agenda. Okay. Now the other side of the story when it comes to socialism movement is nothing but Ramakrishna Mission would be in the book. The life stories would not be there. Ramakrishna Mission would be there. And don't worry about that. Revivalists are a little bit different to reformists in the way they understand the way to move forward, which is that reformists say that we have to change religion. They want to say we need to go back to the original form of religion. Now, the pioneering institution in this is started by a person called Swami Dayanand Saraswati. In himself, he is a very important personality, and his legacy today is one of the greatest because of one of the premier institutions when it comes to schools and colleges, which is DAV. Dayanand Anglo Vedic Schools and Colleges exist in India. Maybe some of you may be a product of that also. Now, the RS Samaj, which was started by Dayanand Saraswati, there's a controversy related to him. Not him, but rather the organization, because of what happens after he dies. So he's coming from the princely states of Morvi, and he will start to then basically become disillusioned with the family, the city, the princely state itself, and start to become a wandering mendicant. Mendicant means a sannyasi. He will basically join what are called the Saraswati Dandis. You would have heard a word called Dandi Baba. These are very important, very, very, very ardent and very orthodox saints, which you would have seen, for example, in the Kumbh Mela. So there is one Dandi group which is called Saraswati Dandis. From there he gets this Dayanand Saraswati. Now, in 1860, he will become the disciple of Swami Vijayananda and be awarded or receive the idea of Vedanta. All of them are basically based on Vedanta only. But the difference between, for example, Dayanand Saraswati or Vivekananda would be the fact that he had a different approach. His idea was purify Hinduism, revive it out of the degenerate state. And the concept was go back to the Vedas. That is why he is considered to be a revivalist, because he's asking us to go back to the original text of the Vedas. That we have this Puranic Hinduism, and this Puranic Hinduism is something which has become problematic. Vedas are the way we go on. Brahmo Samaj is not talking about going back to the Vedas. Brahmoism is mixing the religion today with and reforming it through adding Vedas. They are saying that we need to go back to the original state of Hinduism as it started before the medieval period or the early medieval period. So he's talking about going back, and his understanding is also based on the rejection of Puranas, as I told you, the later texts, polytheism, and Brahmanical rituals and pilgrimage. He also said that this Maya, Moksha, Niyati, destiny, illusion, and salvation all have been made up by these Pandits basically to argue that you need to be associated with the temple. So in a way, they are all talking about the same thing: caste system, intermediary. It's about unlearning what these scriptures have told us and learning what we need to learn through going back to the Vedas. In a way, he's also very progressive, and that is why I told you that not all revivalists are regressive, because he's talking about integrating Western sciences with morality and with the Vedas. First one to use the concept of Swaraj, which is self rule. He said we need to have self rule. He will establish the Arya Samaj for the first time when he was traveling around in the Bombay and Gujarat sector, and the Arya Samaj will be established in Bombay for the first time in 1875. Now, as a Samaj opposing caste system, Hindu orthodoxy, untouchability, intercaste widow remarriage, and he wrote a very important text called Satyarth Prakash, which talks about his ideas about these things. And he said that there should be a minimum age for marriage for girls and boys, 25 for boys and 16 for girls. Now the point is, is he making being a revivalist different points or some other point? Aren't they talking about the same thing? Are the revivalists and reformists different in their goals in that regard? No. They all are the same when it comes to their goals. Their paths are different. This is a point I've been trying to make since yesterday, which is that people tend to judge reformists and revivalists for their names, that he's a reformist and he's a revivalist. That is not true. Reformist or revivalist have the same path, as have the same goal. Path is different. Now, once Dayanand Saraswati is going to die, then things will become problematic. So Arya Samaj, till this point, everybody is following me. Arya Samaj, Bombay Arya Samaj, the original Arya Samaj, started by Dayanand Saraswati himself in 1875. Yes, all Samajes are the same when it comes to their objectives. You don't really need to change your answer for that in that regard. Satyarth Prakash is a book. Now, Arya Samaj, basically they are the same thing in that regard. Their rituals may be different, but they are within the Hinduistic fold itself. They go back to the concept of Vedas. Now, pay attention because this is very significant. Our Samaj under Dayanand Saraswati was totally perfect. It was a good institution. It was developing a certain understanding which was beyond the concept of communalism. It was based on the idea of changing the world. It was talking about Swaraj. It was talking about Western education. It's a revivalist but very progressive institution. However, our Samaj, once he will die, there will be two different groups which will develop. And one is called the Punjab Arya Samaj, and the other one is called the Gurukul group. Gurukul group, which developed in Haridwar. Now, the Punjab Arya Samaj is known for a person, his name very significant, Lala Hansraj. The Hansraj College in Delhi University is named after him only. Lala Hansraj was very significant in realizing that education was the way forward. And he was the one who established and properly institutionalized what is called as DAV, which is Dayanand Anglo-Vedic schools. He worked in the first one itself. Within 6 months, it had 500 students. And that ways, Dayanand Anglo-Vedic schools till today are considered very, very significant as an institution of learning. The irony of, or the Dayanand Anglo DAV school has this very interesting dichotomy wherein they talk about Western education, they talk about modern thought, but they have a very important emphasis on morality, on ethics, on spirituality. This was trying to bring two different worlds together, wherein one we are talking about the Western thought, but also about Indian understandings of spirituality and meditation. And that is why DAV schools still today are considered very important, because in their curriculum itself, they have spiritual learning, they have meditation, they have yoga, which is inbuilt into it, which was, now it is part of a lot of curriculums, but was significantly linked to DAV initially. And that is why in the Lahore Samaj, which is the Punjab sector Samaj, in on 6th December 1883, there was an institution which was planned, for which the funds were collected. In 1885, Lala Hansraj said that I will become the principal of this upcoming institution. And on 1st June 1886, the DAV Anglo-Vedic Trust and Management Society was established, which will also establish multiple schools, and one of the biggest chain in that regard also in India. And the Dayanand Anglo-Vedic schools will attract 550 students within 1 month, and it will get affiliated to the Punjab University by 1889. Curriculums supported the concept of both Western education and spirituality. But a very interesting thing was that no faculty or no governmental support was ever taken. Were never ever taken. Zero help like that. Zero help. No English money was put into the concept of the Dayanand Anglo-Vedic schools in that regard. But for this, we know DAV for good things. However, by 1902, operating from Haridwar, Swami Shraddhanand is the one who will basically make Arya Samaj a little bit problematic. Arya Samaj by 1902, under Swami Shraddhanand, they will become a little bit communalistic. They will become a little bit communalistic because they will develop in the Haridwar and this Punjab sector based on how Christian missionaries were converting the Hindu population and the lower caste to Christianity. They will develop what is called as the Shuddhi movement. This is the Gurukul branch of Arya Samaj. Shuddhi movement was basically to counter Christian missionaries, but will later become more broad. And the concept was that how Christian missionaries can convert people to Christianity. Shuddhi movement was about conversion to Hinduism or reconversion. So Christian missionaries were converting people to Christianity. Through the Shuddhi movement, they wanted to bring back the people into the Hinduistic fold. And the problem was that with Shuddhi movement there, lot of tension was generated in the Punjab sector because the Sikh religion is also there. The Sikh religion is also there. Wherein the Lahore branch of DAV is known for the Lahore branch of Arya Samaj is known for DAV. The Gurukul branch, which was operating from Haridwar, is known for the Shuddhi movement. And the more the British pushed communalistic ideas, the more this Shuddhi movement became problematic, because it started to create tension in which they wanted to reconvert people who had maybe converted previously to certain other religions also. So though it was in direct response to Christian missionaries, That was something which they will start as, but become more broader later. So with him, according to the first census report 1881, or the first proper census, which is 1901, the Hindu population was falling a little bit, Christian population was going up. And this will become the impulse for the Shuddhi Sabha and the Shuddhi movement to become very popular in this sector. Now, attached to the Shuddhi movement is the Jat Path Todak Mandal. Bhai Parmanand, what he did was, the people who were assimilated by the Arya Samajist under Shuddhi movement, he developed a certain organization for them, for their rehabilitation, and whilst condemning caste distinctions, he basically worked very closely with the Gurukul branch of Arya Samaj. So what you have to remember in Arya Samaj is three basic things. Swami Dayanand Saraswati, his ideas and his contribution, the Satyat Prakash and the Arya Samaj 1885. Thereafter, you have to discuss the DAV, which was the Lahore branch of the Arya Samaj, being very significant. And thereafter, you have to discuss the third, which is the concept of Gurukul branch Shuddhi movement and organization which is linked to the Shuddhi movement, which is Jat Path Todak Mal. Are we clear about that? The three basic things. Making tables is going to be very significant, because if you can rearrange all of this, it will be very, very significant for you that way. Saloni, that's a separate issue altogether, but in a way, yes. Right. I don't know what you mean by difference between Gurukul and hostel. I don't know. You want to say hostel, but you are not getting the point. I don't care what is a Gurukul. But the point is called the Gurukul branch, which was based in Haridwar. Not clear this concept. Ashish, write full sentences. Half of you write half of sentences. Write the full sentence and tell me what is not clear. Three people, I've told you their name. Lala Hansraj, Swami Dayanand Saraswati, Swami Shraddhanand. And I've discussed what is Satyat Prakash, Arya Samaj, DAV, Shuddhi movement, and Gurukul branch of Haridwar. Total 10 facts I've told you. What is the issue here? What can you expect? Asha, you ask me this question every time, every topic. Both mains and prelims on basic understanding, and match the following. This will not change. What were the principles of Gurukul branch? They wanted to undo what the Christian missionaries were doing. It's a hate against the Christian missionaries will lead them to develop the concept of Shuddhi movement. No students in Gurukul group. It's rather a small group of Arya Samajists who will take up upon themselves to change their understanding. Shuddhi movement is nothing but a movement which was started by Arya Samaj, till today exists, under which you can reconvert back to Hinduism if you had converted to Sikhism, Islam, Christianity, Judaism, any religion. DAV was not established by Dayanand Saraswati himself, but one of the branches of the Lahore branch under Lala Hansraj. Punjab Lahore would be the same, because that is the whole sector. Punjab used to include Lahore. Was Arya Samaj got divided into two factions. Why then Shuddhi movement will target Sikhs if the target is to reconvert Christianity? Because once a movement starts, it becomes more and more bigger. So it was about now reconverting everybody who had not been a Hindu. So you can see that it starts as a only Christian movement and becomes more and more aggressive. Till today, DAV exists. Till today, Arya Samaj exists. Till today, Shuddhi movement can also be done. You can still reconvert back to Hinduism through the Arya Samaj. Make flowcharts or tables, just understand what you need to understand. Can I move forward? Jata, Todakmal and Arya Samaj, two major. Are we clear about this? Shuddhi movement because of increased number of Christian converts, yes. Okay. What is the difference between Gurukul and DAV? Gurukul branch is Haridwar based, Swami Shraddhanand. DAV is developed by Lahore branch under Lala Hansraj. The timing doesn't match us, Saloni. That's the problem. We'll to discuss that. The timing doesn't match. Doesn't match. That's 1851. That doesn't match. Okay. Now comes a person who hated Raja Ram Mohan Roy than anything, and his name Radhakant Dev. His organization called Dharma Samaj. He is a rival to the Brahmo Samaj. And his problem was that because Raja Ram Mohan Roy said east, he said west. And that is the east and west which comes out here. So he did not like English culture. He said that we should work in close collaboration with the British. We should talk about Western education. But over Sati, he was the opposite of Raja Ram Mohan Roy. While Brahmo Samaj said that Sati should be abolished, he said no, Sati should not be abolished, and that is why Radhakant Dev is known for and remembered for in that regard. He is a proper revivalist. Are you getting my point? Dharma Samaj would be a proper revivalist institution. If you want to see regression in revivalism, Dharma Samaj is one. Because he is saying that no, original Hinduism also had Sati, so we need to have Sati. That is the understanding of Radhakant Dev. DAV and Ramakrishna Mission are same. No, they aren't. One is Swami Vivekanand, the other one is Swami Dayanand Saraswati. Please, I don't know what are you listening to. In no way I have linked these two organizations, and there may be a little bit of similarity in their organization, but that doesn't mean that they're the same or have anything to do with each other. We've already discussed an atheist group yesterday. We've discussed an atheist group. How can he favor Sati Western education simultaneously? That is why he's a contradiction in himself. So don't try to find logic in his understanding. When you hate somebody too much, you basically try to go against. He may not believe in this, but he said it because he had to be a rival to Brahmo Samaj. Dharma Samaj does not exist till today. Obviously, this type of institution will not exist because it is talking about regression. Thereafter, the revivalists are done. The revivalists are done. Reformist revivalist done. Now we move to a different type of movement, which is depressed class reform. We have discussed the core socio-religious reform. Now we'll go into depressed class reform and then into different religions. Muslim reform, the reform in Sikhs, and the reform in Parsis. Are we clear with regards to first 40 minutes? I told you it will not take a lot of time. Arya Samaj being the most important. At a time, Arya Samaj, Pratna Samaj already established. Yes, all are contemporaries to each other. All are contemporaries to each other. Can I talk about depressed classes? Because here comes the most important personality, Jyotiba Phule. Are we going to start next module today? In a way, I've already started next module, which is Socialist Reform Movement Part 2. Peasant and tribal, I think at the pace we are going about it as it is only descriptive. We should be able to reach at least peasant for sure, or rebellions as they're called. But there's a very important discussion I need to have there with you with regards to their nature. That is something very significant. So I am not in any rush to complete this module, but I hope that you get the idea that there is nothing to teach here. It's just person, organization, idea. Person, organization, idea. And basically, if you are doing a thesis on any one of them, then you're literally wasting your time. So if you all are on the same page, you understand the purpose of this discussion, then I would like to go to depressed class, because some of you will say, why aren't in CERN teaching something? There is nothing to teach here, because we don't have to go and do a thesis on any of these people. So it's just facts. I've already told you, make a table and rearrange it. But because I need to still have a discussion with you, I am telling you to do it generally. Right? Okay. Can we transition? Depressed class. And as I said, today, a little bit of tomorrow, the pain will end very soon. And once this pain is over, it won't come back. Okay. Against the abolition of sati. Yes, Krishna. Now, whilst women were the focus of the first, which is from Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar to Raja Ram Mohan Roy, Sati, infanticide. There was another parallel movement which started, which is depressed class reforms. Depressed class is a word which is used for multiple terms which we use today. You can call it the fourth Varna, the Shudra community, the untouchables, Shudras, and the lower castes, as they're called. A word which came out of vogue and was developed by one of the reformers himself. The word Dalit also in a way is used for depressed classes. Gandhi developed his own terminology for depressed classes, which is Harijan. The basic point is, historically, when you will do ancient medieval art and culture with me, as soon as we finish this course, and the next change is going to be only that, which is on, I think, 13th of December, I will be teaching you where that notion comes from. Not the origin of it, but where it starts from. So from the later Vedic period itself, now close to 3000 years ago, the first religion to develop was Vedic Brahmanism or early Hinduism. And that was based on the concept of the concept of fourfold Varna system. Some of you may have geography, some of you have history. Don't worry, don't want to study history, go to geography. If you don't like geography, come here. No issue. Fourfold Varna system. Under fourfold Varna system, the Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra based rigid organization or society was created. And over a period of time, by the Mauryan period, we have untouchability also coming through. And by the time we transition to medieval India, the temples, the religious institutions, the society and whole of Hinduistic religion and society at this point of time is based on social exclusion, false notions of purity, and social discrimination. It is again one of the most inhumane form of human practice, that you are basing your understanding of people on the basis of certain purity concepts. A certain community is not allowed to enter the temple. A certain community is not allowed to live in a certain part of the city. Divisions are based on excluding people, that is social exclusion. Now, during the British period, because English education was available to everyone, and the English did not discriminate very categorically vis-a-vis Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, or did not really understand the Varna system that well, a lot of our social reformers got access to English education. And through the access to English education, they understood the real plight of the Shudra community, the Dalits, or the depressed classes. The term I will use is depressed classes. And their way of understanding was that caste needs to be destroyed, that is for sure. But according to them, the real issue was the religious intermediaries, who had for centuries perpetuated this concept. And over and above that, they made sure that there was no ease in the system. And in certain cases, they argued that caste and rigidity in society is also something intrinsic to Hinduism. And therefore, if Hinduism does not reform, nothing will change. And for them, they argued that political freedom and economic freedom only make sense when you have social freedom. The first such personality was Jyotiba Phule. He was born into a depressed class family, went to the Scottish Mission High School, and it was when he was attending his very good friend's wedding that he was humiliated and removed by the Bharat procession because of his caste. He realized that India had something more problematic than just sati, which is depressed class discrimination. He will thereafter read Thomas Paine's book, The Right of Man, and he will develop the concept of how you need to condemn, which is criticize inequality in the religious books. And if those books are talking about inequality, they should be very simply discarded. So, be it untouchability or any form of discrimination, it was the Brahmanical domination which was the problem. Brahmins dominated the whole society, and therefore they perpetuated this type of understanding. He will marry Savitri Bai Phule, very important social reformer herself, and he will become a pioneer of girls' education and depressed class movement. He will teach his wife to learn and read and get educated, and she herself will become one of the foremost depressed class reformers, female depressed class reformers in India. Now, Jyotiba Phule argued that hierarchy, religion, and exploitation are something which the masses are perpetuating and that needs to be opposed for. And he said that we are blind and misleaded by these hypocritic religious practices. He very simply said that until unless there is unity, equality, and easy religious principles which everybody can follow, then if you can't produce this type of religion, then that religion itself is useless. Jyotiba Phule is a male, is a person. He will start the school for girls in Pune in 1851. By 1875, he had a specific home for pregnant women of dominant caste who had been discarded by their family. Widow remarriage and education for women, he will become a pioneer. But when it comes to the depressed classes, he is the one who was the first one to use the word Dalit, which is broken or crushed by the society. He opened his home for all castes and backgrounds, and he believed that it was only education which could take the depressed classes forward. Compulsory primary education and special incentive for lower castes were important to bring these two communities together, which is the Brahmanical dominated society and the depressed classes. The organization which he started was the Satyashodhak Samaj, the Society for this Society for Seekers of Truth. And the truth was that untouchability and the liberation of Shudras was important, and from exploitation and oppression equally important. From the Mahabharata, he picked up a very important symbol, Raja Bali, and he then argued that he was an example of how depressed classes could be what they could be if they had access to education, to resources. He had a paper called Deen Bandhu, and he condemned caste hierarchy and the privilege of priests in it. So basically, when we talk about Jyotiba Phule, Savitribai Phule, depressed class reform, the word Dalit, women's education, girls' education, widow remarriage, Satyashodhak Samaj, and the concept of Deen Bandhu. If you can remember the following, then you can remember what you have to remember for the examination. Note down these things. That is what you have to remember generally about Jyotiba Phule. Are we clear about these personalities? Yes. Okay. Pavitra, that is a designation given to the fourth Varna. Shweta, because in the Mahabharata he has been given the depressed class tag in that regard. I don't think caste discrimination exists in any way today. Sayyad, I would like to know in which country you live in. I don't know where you are, that you have no idea of what is caste discrimination. Maybe in urban areas you would not have seen it. Urban areas also it is there. In villages, in towns, in not even that. In America, the population, diasporic population in America, which is Indian diasporic population, you will not get a flat in a certain American society where Indians are there if you're not from a specific caste. So it's not that the Constitution, the government of India have multiple safeguards. We have positive discrimination also. But if by saying that there is no caste system is something where either you are not cognizant of it, or you don't understand it, or you don't see it, or in a way you are in some ivory tower where it is not there. So the exclusion of certain communities, multiple farmers die because of their caste identity. Multiple you would have heard about certain stories in which the certain community was not allowed to use horses in their marriages because it is linked to a certain caste, and people have been killed over these things. Very menial things, but very major killings have happened over this. We have honor killing. We have multiple issues in India based on caste, varna, and discriminations, appearances, certain privileges, certain concepts. I don't know. I don't know. Uh, I hope you are right in the near future. You are not right now. So we Indians are the same. We are wherever we are. And America, right? If you've ever been following uh, the news in America, there has been recently a caste discrimination bill has been passed, in which they are now saying that there needs to be positive discrimination in American companies also, because there's caste discrimination by Indians in these American companies. Because the CEO or that person is from a specific caste, he's only taking specific people. California, yes. So Americans are now better, but caste discrimination and issues not like this, but still is there. Still is there. Uh, it is there. And vote bank politics on that is also very common in India. That way. So it's. I hope you are right in the near future, not right now. Can we move to the next set? Yes. Why we have to give value that we don't have? I can say I am not going to here talk about something which is based on your twisted notion of something. So my job is a positive discrimination is needed. Article 15, 16 is needed. Every safeguard which has been created is needed, because there is multiple perspectives. There are multiple things. It from where you come from, which perspective you are speaking, all dictates how you think about it. Jyotiba Phule is a women and depressed class reformist. Right. Okay. Why women are always the target of such discriminatory, although society claims equity? Women are targets because women were always given subordinate position, and controlling women is something which societies do, because women are the markers of civilization and the force which takes civilization forward. Dr. Ashish, you are, I think, this is your doctor is a MBBS doctor, right? But sir, clear injustice. Again, I will not validate that. What stream are you? What stream are you, Dr. Ashish? If we all need certain consultation, at least I can forward it to you. Meaning gastroenterology, cardiology, general surgeon, somebody has a cold, something like that. Okay. Manja is saying, let's move to the next one. I don't care. I have a better doctor. Very good. Okay. Now, Then comes another very important personality. I feel some changes in the way I'm teaching consolidation after every topic. शाहनवाज तो ये बोलो ना, you want bottle feeding. मैं box बना देता हूँ, मैं ऐसे 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 कर देता हूँ, and then I will write ज्योतिबा फूले सत्यशोधक समाज. Then teaching will be fine. Consolidation I am doing, I don't know where you are. And as I told you, descriptive area, one more class, mind my teaching, thereafter you can judge me later. Right? As I said, there is nothing to consolidate here. There's just names, organization, concept. That is it. So I don't know what to do with this. That is the point. I told you, make boxes, move forward. That is it. That is it. There is no way in which you will find this area useful for anything else. That is the point you need to understand very clearly. So I want to move towards 1857 as quickly as possible, because this area I can easily tell you, read it and make the tables. But I'm still going through it because there are certain things you need to know about each person, which is important. So note that. That is it. So consolidation will be done when there will be something to consolidate. Names I am telling you, note them down. Okay. Repressed class movements are anti-Brahmanical movements. Yes, obviously, because Brahmins are the ones who perpetuated the problem itself. That is same, Adil, same person. Which is the need which we need to ratification. Ratification is this name, organization, and this is called Gajini effect. What did we decide yesterday? Did the rules change overnight? I told you this area is this only. So you have to just make tables, understand the point, and move forward. So ratification is name and organization. That's it. Brahmins are the intermediaries, but they are the ones who perpetuated. They are not intermediaries. They are the perpetuators of social discrimination through the readings of the Vedas and the Upanishads and the scriptures. Please understand this point. The scriptures are read by the Varna, which controls knowledge, which is Brahmins, and they are the ones who produce this structure. Okay. Now, Sri Narayan Guru is a very important personality when it comes to Kerala and the Izhava. And please mind my pronunciation. This Izhava community in Kerala, he is considered very, very important, wherein he was the one who challenged the notion of temple entry in a way. Because this caste and this community in the caste in Kerala, in South India, it was even more crystallized in that way. He challenged the notion that they were not given access to God. They were not given access to God. And he talked about spiritual freedom and social equality. And Sri Narayan Guru's very important body was the SNDP, which is Sri Narayan Guru Dharma Paripalana Yoganam. And more than that, no, Raja, I don't know. I don't know where you're getting that information from. This is what basic standard Bipin Chandra is. Now, he stressed on the fact that spiritual and social upliftment of downtrodden is very important. Temple and educational institutions are equally important in that regard, and access to them is even more important. The Chaturvarna concept, which is the fourfold Varna system, is something which he saw as the problem. And the movement which is linked to is called the Aravipuram movement. This movement started in 1888, where Sri Narayan Guru himself established a Shivlinga in Aripuram in Kerala, wherein the Brahmin community, the what we call as the temple community, was not allowing this caste to worship Lord Shiva. So he said, rather, I will establish my own temple because God does not discriminate. And therefore, on the walls of this temple read, devoid of the dividing walls of caste or race, and hatred of rival faith. We all live here as a brotherhood in brotherhood. And most important is, it is Sri Narayan Guru who will then inspire a very important movement which we will study in the CDM, which is Civil Disobedience Movement, parallel to it, which is called the Temple Entry Movement. It's called the Anti-Brahmin Movement or Temple Entry Movement because in South, temple entry was a very important concept. People were not allowed to go from a certain road which used to be on the temple wall. The castes and the varnas, the lower varnas, were asked to avoid these roads itself, that the shadow of that community could be impurity. This level of caste-based discrimination we saw, and the temples and the Brahmanical community was actually perpetuating it. And it was a person called Periyar or E.V. Ramaswamy Naikar who started a movement which became, in a way, synonymous with the temple entry movement, which is called self-respect movement. That only when we will respect ourselves as the lower caste, then only can we challenge the higher castes. More than that, he argued that the majority is the depressed classes, the minority is the Brahmin community, the upper varnas, and the upper castes. Why are we allowing for minority domination over majority? And his understanding was, we have to fight for our dignity, self-respect. And he's the one who basically pioneered the concept of anti-Brahmanism. Reason and humanism is more important. And more than that, he will become the idea behind equal rights for women in education, property, and personal choice, about what we call as the concept of intercaste marriages, that there should be no orthodox marriages, advocated the fact that women should have the right to divorce men. They should have the right to divorce men if their husbands are useless or have certain reasonably known issues in their behavior. And last but not the least is that when we talk about the chastity of women, when we talk about the concept of how pure a woman should be, the same should be applied to men also. So E.V. Ramaswamy Naikar, he's called Periyar by his followers. Till today is one of the leading ideologies and ideologists in the South Indian sector, and specifically temple entry, anti-Brahmanical movements. He revolutionized the way we saw the temples and their institutions in that regard. There are three things I've discussed with you in depressed classes: Sri Narayan Guru, Periyar, and Jyotiba Phule. So yesterday we did reformists. Shanawaz, pay attention. I am consolidating. You will forget it or not pay attention. Then they will say I'm not consolidating. We did reformists, we did revivalists, and we did depressed classes. All of this is in Hinduism, we've discussed. And under it, I am already telling you the Brahmo Samaj, the Prathna Samaj, the Ramakrishna Mission, the concept of Vidyasagar, Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, Pandita Ramabai, and Malabari Derozio. These are critical. Other than that, I've done smaller organizations with you. That is okay. Raja Ram Mohan Roy comes under Brahmo Samaj only. Revivalists, we've done Arya Samaj and Dayanand Saraswati. We've done Shuddhi movement and we've done DAV. Then we said Jat, Path, Todak Mal, or Samaj, Todak Samaj. These two, along with the Dharma Samaj, are what we did under revivalism. And here we have Jyotiba Phule, Sri Narayan Guru, and last but not the least, which is Periyar. If you can remember their organizations, the people associated with them, their basic ideologies, Brahmoism, but radical orthodox. Ramakrishna Mission, service to people is service to nation. Vidyasagar is women's education, widow remarriage, and he was a very important person for Bengali prose. Pandit Ramabai, the Arya Mahila Samaj, and the concept of women being exploited and discarded out of society. Malabari as a connection, as a very important person for age of consent bill and widow remarriage and child marriage. And Derozio, which is challenge to the British itself. Arya Samaj would be Dayanand Saraswati, the concept of DAV, the concept of Swaraj, Western plus meditative. More than that, the concept of how we have here you have Neo Vedanta under Swami Vivekananda. He is go back to the Vedas. Then DAV school, Swami Shraddhanand, you have the concept of Shuddhi movement. Jatpat Todakmal linked to the Shuddhi movement takes the discarded, the reconverted people. Dharma Samaj hates what Radhakant Dev hates what Raja Ram Mohan Roy does rather opposes Sati, opposes the abolition of Sati. Phule is the one who gave the word Dalit. The Satya Shodhak Samaj, the concept of how we need to dismantle the systems, caste discrimination. Sri Narayan Guru is Eva community, the Aravapuram movement, the concept of temple entry, and the temple he established himself. And Periyar is the pioneer of anti-Brahmanical movement, depressed class movement where temple entry movement, Justice Party, I will discuss with you in the CDM because it intersects with CDM. I can't just go and talk about Gandhi there because Gandhi was importantly temple entry movement also. So if you can remember what is written on the screen, half of the job is already done. You just have to consolidate these things. Total number is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 organizations are asking you to learn, nothing more, nothing less. So I'm not asking you to go and ratify 50 organizations. It is a very easy task if you can actually make tables. If you can make tables and you can consolidate, your task is already done. Because then if this is clear, I want to then go, Periyar is Ramaswamy Naikar only. Mayuri, listen. Periyar is the word which is more used in the examination. Because then I have to go to Parsi reform, then Muslim reform, and then Sikh reform. Are we clear about this? I have just consolidated whatever we done under Hinduism. Periyar is the name given to he is basically mostly called Periyar only. E.V. Ramaswamy Naikar Periyar. Shanawaz, okay? Sri Narayan Guru, relative of Gandhi, isn't it? How? Where? Where are you getting this information? Periyar is a name which has been given to him by his admirers. Depressed class is also social reform only, right? Periyar is against the existence of God. So, Dr. Ambedkar separately. Dr. Ambedkar, cannot talk about him here, right? Dr. Ambedkar, I will talk about once the national movement is done. I'll talk about him throughout the movement. Specific, I will do. These are last modules, later modules. Perfect, Dinesh, perfect. Sure. I had no idea about that, sure. Manja, how does it change that he against the existence of God or not? What is the issue with Periyar? See, as much as you like him, don't like him, agree with him, don't agree with him. What Periyar was saying, what Sri Narayan Guru was saying, what Savitribai Phule was saying, what Dayanand Saraswati was saying, what, for example, even Jyotiba Phule was saying, what Dr. Ambedkar is going to say later. There is an issue. There was an issue. It still exists. We have constitutional safeguards. But before the constitution, it was an acute issue. It was a really, really, really acute issue. So don't worry about that. Annie Besant, I will discuss when I will discuss Home Rule League, then I will discuss Theosophical Society. Don't worry about that. Periyar means the one with higher consciousness. The press class movement does not come under revivalism or reformism. All is reform. Swami Vivekananda is reformist because he is basically talking not about going back to something. He added a lot of elements into Vedanta. It was new Vedanta. That is why reformist. Yes, I know that, Megha. Okay. Let's do one thing. Let's take a break. Let's come back at 6:30. When we come back at 6:30, I want you to clear your mind a little bit. Right. My expectation is don't panic. I have already told you it is going to pain. It is going to pain. I am giving you a break here because if I don't, then Parsi, the names are difficult, and Muslim reform is equally important. When all ideologies are different, what is the need to classify revivalists and reformists? So now we're back to square one. Their goals are the same, their path is different. Reformists don't want to go back to something, they want to move forward. Neo-Vedanta, Brahmoism. And revivalists want to revive, go back to the Vedas. This is a fundamental issue which I asked you. Do you understand the difference between reformists and revivalists? They all want the same thing. It is like our national movement. Dr. Ambedkar also wants the same thing. Sardar Patel also wants the same thing. Subhash Chandra Bose wants the same thing. Nehru wants the same thing. Everybody wants the same thing, which is Indian independence. But their paths are different. Gandhi has a different path. Nehru has a different path. Bose has a different path. Dr. Ambedkar has a different path. Their understandings may be different. Please understand this point. Does caste system start after Harshvardhan time? Caste system was there since Vedic system starts. For that, you have to wait for ancient India. Please understand this point very, very clearly. That today it is very easy to create this verses, which is Gandhi, Bose, Nehru, Bose, Patel, Nehru, this, that. It's very easy. And the point is that, ironically, they never saw it in that way. Sardar Patel also knew what he was doing. Jawaharlal Nehru also knew what he was doing. And they both knew that if they get divided, then India does not come into existence. So unfortunately, this politics is to divide. And now we've started to divide our leaders also. As much as Subhash Chandra Bose is important, Gandhi is also important. Subhash Chandra Bose, till his dying breath, never did anything, even after Gandhi humiliated him in 2 INC sessions. He never took a grudge, called him father of the nation, and waited for Gandhi to say that come to India. They don't have fragile egos like you and me and our politicians. They are truly what they should be, which are national leaders who transcend everybody. So you will never understand what they were going through. Because if Bose responds to Gandhi, if Patel responds to Nehru, or Nehru responds to Patel, that is what the British were waiting for. So they are leaders. They are not politicians. They are leaders. So understand this point very clearly. That Periyar is against this, he is against that, Flana is doesn't matter. These people transcend time, and if you were in that situation, do half of or only 1% of what they did, then I will actually say that you have done something in life. Very easy to criticize everybody. Very easy. Gandhi should have done this. Then you should go back and tell him that. Nehru did this, Patel this, that. No. You don't know what India was going through. You will never understand that also. Here I just remove your, if I want, I can ignore your messages. And you will start to say, how can you do that? And here a Britisher came, took everything what we wanted and was not giving us independence. Go and say that to a Britisher and you see the response. Our constitutional self tends to say a lot of things because you did not fight for your independence. You did not see what was India before independence. You did not see the struggles of India between 1947 and 1990. You have not seen what your parents have seen, or your grandparents or your great-great-grandparents have seen. We take a lot of things for granted, and that is why we are in a way spoiled by constitutionalism. How can you? You have not sacrificed for the nation. So all the nationalism what we talk about today is all very, very simple, straightforward nationalism. That I love my nation, nationalism. Everybody loved their nation. Everybody wanted India. You have not gone and got shot by the British because India was not coming into existence, and it was not going to come into existence for next 20 years. The day you will realize this fact, then the day you will realize who are these people and why are they important. And this is a point you need to understand forever. Stop doing things which basically is, he should have done this, he should have done that. Very easy to sit in 2023 and talk about these things. So what we are today, the right of you to say that Gandhi should have done that is basically Gandhi's contribution to do that. But unfortunately, over time, things happen. And throughout this class, once I enter nationalism, I will tell you for sure that it is a painstaking, bloody, slow, and very, very problematic, and it's literally, you don't have the patience to do it. Fought in Rowlatt Satyagraha, did not happen, 1919. Then fought in 1920, non-cooperation. For 2 years we fought, nothing happened. Simon Commission, 1927, again fought, nothing happened. 1931 we fought. 3 years we fought. Then 4 years we fought. 40, 42, 45, 47. You have no idea what the national movement is. And really, that is why UPSC asks questions from the national movement specifically. So I am not here to take your judgments because I really don't care about what you feel about a leader, because you are nobody to judge them. Understand this point. The day you become capable or enough to criticize Gandhi, Nehru, and Subhash Chandra Bose, you will be the Prime Minister of India. So very simply, I am setting the rules straight here. That really I don't care about what you think about that leader, because you don't know what that leader did, in what context he did. So with a fresh mind, with a fresh understanding, I'm here to change your way of understanding colonial India. At least I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to bring in logic, and I'm trying to tell you that the British did something in a certain way. I've tried to do it for socialist reform movement. I've tried to do it for railways. I've tried to do it for police. I've tried to do it for even economic policy. So this speech was due maybe next 2 classes, but I've given it to you here only. So the day you realize the importance of this speech, you will understand the importance of this course. And a lot of students ask us, why is that we have to study history for UPSC? Because if you will not study UPSC, when you will not study history, how will you get to know that the freedom by which you are saying, why am I studying history, was granted by somebody getting shot in the chest? Lala Lajpat Rai was beaten to death by a lathi on his head 37 times. For you to say that, kya karenge history padh ke? So remember, your freedom came at a cost. You don't know it, but I know it. So we take a break here because I want you to be fresh enough to take more information, which is Parsi, Muslim, and what we call as Sikh reform. And then we start peasant and tribal basic theoretical history. So we come back at 6:30, 40, and then we take the story forward. Agree? Disagree? Doesn't really matter to me. But can we take a break here? Are we all on the same page here? Okay. So Radhakant was against sati abolition. How can he come under revivalist? He's a revivalist because he goes into the orthodox group. He goes into the orthodox group. Orthodox revivalists are also there. Okay. See you at 6:40. Or rather, I've taken your 1 minute. I'm not a Britisher. I'll give it to you back. 41. Okay. Welcome back. Okay. Now, taking the story forward for social religious reform movement, we now add now the other religions, wherein the first is the Parsi reform. In 1851, Parsis, Zoroastrians, a separate community in the Gujarat sector, also generally a very important merchant community and commercial community. And you have one of the most foremost Parsis who was basically the one who destroyed the argument of the British, Dadabhai Naroji. Their organization, Rehnuman Mazadan Sabha, or the Religious Reform Association, don't have to learn this. Just remember Rehnuman or Rehnumai as soon as you see is basically Parsi. Learn that one word which you can remember easily. So 1851, there's only one organization also for them. And the prominent leaders who are associated with this Sabha would be Naroji Frunji, you have Sorabji Sapruji Bengali, KN Kama, and the most important, Dadabhai Naroji. Now, their understanding was very simple, which is that we need to go for better education in the Parsi community, but they were also very ardent about women getting rights to property and women's education. So, as I said, Parsi community is the Zoroastrian community. They are migrated into the Indian subcontinent in the Gujarat sector. Commercial and what we call as merchant community, generally very important. Parsi Zoroastrianism is in a self a religion, separate religion itself, and they have a very important connection with commerce. So they talked about Zoroastrian reform, and they also talked about granting legal status to women when it comes to inheritance and uniform laws about Parsi marriages. So the fact of the matter is, from the Central Asian sector, they've migrated. That all this is all coming from the northwestern sector. From the northwestern sector, merchant community came to the maritime route. It's a very slow migration, very small community till today they exist. Now, first is education. Second is women's right to inheritance within marriages. Now, they have a very important newspaper through which they talked about it, which is Rasht Goftar. Remember this? Rasht Goftar was the one which talked about the Parsi reform and the Parsi community. And this Anglo-Gujarati newspaper was developed by K.N. Kama and Naroji himself in 1851. And they basically wanted to remove orthodoxy. And that was the Parsi community in which the women are there. Women, marriage, social position of women is generally better. It's a better religion, or the position of women in Parsi communities is better because of these reforms in that regard. So there's only one basic organization for Parsis, and you just have to remember Rehnumai. You remember Rehnumai, and you will remember it forever. Thereafter, we now move to Muslim reform movement, and this is a very significant place because we again go into the two categories: reform and revivalism. And though the Muslim community did not respond to the British impulses very quickly, and that is why most of the reform happens after 1860s. They shut their community against this British, what we call as criticism. They said, we don't care what is your criticism. But one man will realize that there is a need to change the Muslim community. After 1857, it will be Sir Syed Ahmad Khan who will become important. Now try to understand one point. Sir Syed Ahmad Khan believed that only if education comes through, then only can the whole system of Muslim education, Muslim women, or Muslim community can go forward. For him, he is the foremost reformists in Muslims, because in Muslims there will be more revivalists than reformists. They've done the Ahmadiyya movement. They will be very, very important revivalists. but he is talking about taking Islam forward. He argues that Islam can be made better by adding Western education to it. Only when the people start to study, only when a Western education comes into the Muslim community, that we can move forward as a community itself. And the Aligarh Muslim University, which will be established by him, was the foremost movement and a university which took it forward. So this is called the Aligarh movement. Aligarh movement, he was the most important personality overall in that regard. So when we talk about Muslim reform, he is the one who is associated with the Aligarh movement. He talked about modern science and thought and how it should reconcile, it should come up with Islam itself. And he believed that the Quran alone is the authoritative text, but 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 adding modern education to this community may be a very important movement for political and economic rights of women and generally the community itself. And that is why in 1875 he will establish the Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental College, which will later be renamed as AMU or Aligarh Muslim University. Now, whilst Sir Syed Ahmad Khan initially was about cooperation with the British, reform of the Muslims, persuading them for modern education, opposed Parda concept itself, polygamy within Islam, and easy divorce, which is the Talaq tradition itself, the people associated with him, from Chirag Ali to Nasir Ahmad to Shibli, Nomani, and other important personalities, and his magazine Tehzeeb ul Akhlaq, these reformists, they are called reformists because they kept on saying one thing, that Islam is important, Quran is important, but Western education is important. However, Sir Syed Ahmad Khan over a period of time becomes problematic. And that problematic approach comes from his understanding. And Muhammad Iqbal, who's considered one of the most greatest poets of colonial India, who talks about the philosophical religious outlook and who was very, very close to the concept of both communities coming together and contemplation, very dynamic. He's a humanist, talks about human rights. Iqbal, that way, is very, very important. But both Muhammad Iqbal and Sir Syed Ahmad Khan are going to get associated with the larger movement, which is called as the Muslim League. And thereafter, his political ideas will be about the separation of communities, and that is why Sir Syed Ahmad Khan initial period he's considered reformist. However, over a period of time he will become problematic vis-a-vis the two nation theory and the concept of how there needs to be a separate vision for the Muslims itself. Now, when I'll be teaching you separate electorates, and I'll be teaching you parliamentary reforms, I will talk about this very, very, very important concept where there was a breakage and how the British understood something which they did not understand previously. But understand one more thing, which a point I will discuss with you even in the 1857 period. According to the British, the revolt of 1857, according to the British, because Bahadur Shah Zafar was involved, was considered a Muslim conspiracy. So, under British understanding, between 1857 to 1909, the British did not really touch the Muslim community too much. Because though it is not true that it was a conspiracy, though it is not true that Bahadur Zafar was acting like a Muslim, it is not true that the 1857 revolt is just a Muslim conspiracy. It's a totally very simplistic understanding, a very British understanding of things. The fact is that between this period, the British would not touch this community itself. That is why Sir Syed Ahmad Khan was very significant, and there is also one more reason why they were not touching the Muslim community, because of the revivalists, which I will tell you. Because the Devband movement, the Ahmadiyya movement, and the Wahhabis literally will destroy the English argument everywhere, though they themselves become problematic over a period of time. But initially, you will see that how they basically opposed the British. Once the British saw the force of Indian nationalism, specifically before the Swadeshi movement and after the Swadeshi movement, it is then that the British pick up this community and see it as a way of dividing India. And they now start to juxtapose each other and create certain hatred, which was all engineered. This point I will discuss with you, wherein this concept of separate interests is something related to how the separate electorates played out. What is Swadeshi movement and all, I will discuss with you later, which is 1905, 1906, which is the partition of Bengal. Don't worry about that. I'm trying to give you a certain prelude. There's a much more technical story here. There's a much more story embedded in this story, which is more important than what we see. Which is more important than what we see generally. Wherein Sir Syed Ahmad Khan very categorically created a narrative that the Muslim community was not involved in the 1857 revolt. And that is why that word cooperation with the British. He categorically said that we have to prove ourselves as a community which was not the sole mover in 1857. But whilst Sir Syed Ahmad Khan later will become problematic, as I said, because of his association with the concept of Muslim League itself, initially he did good for this community. He did good for this community. But when we talk about Muslim reform, the fact of the matter is, Iqbal or beat Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, they are part of their own smaller community. In a way, the majority was never very affected by Syed Ahmad Khan or Iqbal's writing, which talks about human action, which talks about passive acceptance of things. It is about coming out as a more active part of the Muslim community itself. And you will see that the Aligarh movement in that regard had also bogged down had become conservative. And that is why the Khilafat movement is considered very important, because a new generation of Muslim reformers or Muslim nationalists will come out. We'll discuss that point. So there's a lot to unpack. It's a very interesting discussion which we'll have. And throughout this whole story of nationalism, I'll keep on developing the concept of communalism with you. Because communalism was a genesis, was a innovation of the British-like famines. There was nothing so antagonistic between these two what we call as communities, that they could not remain in the same nation. But the British categorically used them against each other to slow down the process of nationalism. So we'll talk about that. Are we clear about Sir Syed Ahmad Khan? You have to remember the name of AMU, old name, his orientation, how Iqbal was related to him, understanding of Iqbal and Sir Syed Ahmad Khan. Nothing very revolutionary or what we call as out of the box. They're standard information. Now, the real problem for the British were not Sir Syed Ahmad Khan. It was the revivalists amongst the Muslims, and specifically the Waliullah or the Wahhabi movement, and later the Devband movement. If you have any understanding of sedition law was developed by the British specifically for this movement itself. And why was the Wahhabi movement problematic? See, the Wahhabi movement says that Islam, as we see in colonial India, is not what it should be, and we need to purify Islam of all un-Islamic practices which had come up in Muslim society. Basically, revivalist, go back to the original religion. And you have multiple personalities. It will start in Arabia with Abdul Wahab Wahhabi, and in India it will be the Shah Waliullah Dehlvi, and later it will be taken forward by Sayyid Ahmad Behrlvi. But the interesting point is not this. Islam had changed, so they need to purify. But guess who did the Wahhabi movement blame for distortion of Islam? Yes, Kritika, only. They said that the problem is British. They said that the problem in the Muslim community is not anyone else. It's not the Hindu community, it's not anyone else. It's the British. They are the ones who basically distorted Islam in the form of Muslim law. And basically, the biggest target of the Wahhabi movement was no other religion, it was the English. And in their newspapers, in their pamphlets, in their gatherings, literally used to abuse the British. See, un-Islamic practices can be anything what they don't agree as Islamic. That is a very subjective concept. Whatever they said that there are distortions which came in Islam later, which are un-Islamic practices according to the Wahhabi movement, that is subjective to the Wahhabi movement itself. But the point of the matter is very straightforward, that they will not target a community. They will target the British. So they will basically start to develop a little bit of antagonism with the annexation of Punjab. And during the War of 1857, Wahhabis played a very important role in spreading anti-British sentiment. And they will become such a big problem for the British when it comes to how we perceive as movements, that the British had to come up with the concept of sedition to basically put them in jails. Sedition in India, which is exciting dissatisfaction or disaffection against the government, in 1870 was not developed because of nationalists. It was developed because of the Wahhabi movement. Because every time the Wahhabis used to say anything, they used to say British is the reason. British is the reason. Everything British. British got so annoyed by this movement that they said we need a law to basically control these people. So sedition as a concept specifically came for a revivalist movement within Islam. And this tells you the level of frustration which the British would have had. For no one else, they developed any law at this point of time. For just one community, imagine the level of hatred which the Wahhabis used to show to the British. And the British came up with this concept that if you are enticing disaffection against us to others, we will jail you. Well, they should entice dissatisfaction or disaffection because you are worth that only. So remember Wahhabi, you have to remember these names. Obviously, you have to remember these names. 1, 2, 3. And you have to remember it's a revivalist movement. And the third most important concept is sedition was specifically created for the Wahhabi movement. For the Wahhabi movement. This is a very significant point you need to understand. Thereafter, we have the T2 Mir movement. And it will be started by a person called Mir Nihar Ali. I have made the things which you have to remember in yellow, so don't worry about that. He was also known as T2 Mir, and he is related to the Wahhabi movement. He will adopt Wahhabism, the fact that he said that there's something to be purified in Islam and the problem is the British. But he was significant in a peasant agitation in Bengal against planters and landlords. Now, T2 Mir's movement is called a peasant fighting a landlord. But what it is argued is Muslim peasant fighting against Hindu landlords. But if I try to remove the idea of communalism here, would it have really mattered what the religion of the peasant was or the landlord was? This is not a communal religious clash. They are not fighting because it is Hindu-Muslim. They are fighting because it is peasant versus landlord or peasant versus an oppressor. This is what is called as communalization of history. You'll find it in a lot of texts. Very categorically, I use these words because this is called communalization of history. It had nothing to do with Muslim Hindu. No. This identity is the most important one. Secondary identity coincidentally matched with Hindus and Muslims. He will be killed later by the British in a confrontation, but Titu Mir showed us that there were much fundamental issues in the peasant movement and other places also, which needed to manifest itself in certain ways. So, we've done Wahhabism, we've done Titu Mir movement, we've done Aligarh movement. Aligarh movement is the only reformist. These two are revivalists. Then you have the Farizi movement, starts in the Faridpur sector. Again, it's a peasant movement against landlords and British oppressors. The person is Dudumian, and he is also coming from a religious sect, and he is again a revivalist type, wherein he is going to talk about, and it's written like this also, Mia or Mian, both same, different texts you'll find different terms. He argued that all men are equal and that all land belongs to God and that no one has the right to levy tax on it. He took it upon himself to drive the British intruders out of Bengal. Now, they are not basically revivalists or reformists, but because they are religiously oriented, we put them into socialist reform movement. But Farizi movement, I will again talk about when I'll discuss peasant and tribal, because this is more a peasant movement than just religious. Last is the most relevant and in a way the most dangerous for the British, which is the Deoband. Again, a revivalist movement in that regard. And they stressed on again the concept that Islamic traditions need to be purified and need to be brought to where they were previously. He's talked about propagating pure Quran and Hadith, which is the interpretation of Quran amongst Muslims, but keeping alive the spirit of struggle against British rulers. So, in a way, these movements are considered important. Because they all see the British as the problem. So it will start under Muhammad Qasim Nanotwi in the Saharanpur district in 1866. Again, original Islamic religion, need to shut out Western culture and education. Moral regeneration and religious regeneration of Muslim community has happened because of the British. So we need to make it better. And they will basically target the British on this concept that you are the one who destroyed Islam. But Deobans generally till today exist. This community still exists, and since the existence or since their inception in 1866, between 1947, they were very ardent opposers of the British, and their literature was always filled by seditious content about the British in that regard. Last, I think, before we move to Sikhs, yes, is the Ahmadiyya. Deoband and Wahhabis are different. Now, Ahmadiyya movement, it was an Islamic religious movement in Punjab again. Person is Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, and he will again proclaim that Muslim religion needs to be revived. But actually, his argument was that the society had got degenerated, and he was the new renewer of Islam. That he will renew Islam and with a new vision itself. So the concept was that all major world religions were propounded by God himself, and the God's plan was to make Islam as the complete and last major religion. That's again his understanding, but it's a movement based on religious principles of purifying Islam, and very simply again saw the British as the one who distorted Islam. So we all discuss these movements before we go to Sikh movement and the Singh Sabha and the concept. The concept is very straightforward. They all see the British as the problem. That is why we discuss them under socialist reform movement, because whatever their purification may be, they may be very orthodox. But for them, it was the distortion and the intrusion of the British which created these distortions. Again, make a box. names, basic idea. You can do that. Revivalist or pre, all of this is relevant. That is why I'm telling you to make that box, because it will help you in prelims level understanding. Okay, now last after this we go to peasant tribal. That is also a little bit factual, but there's a good discussion we need to have initially about colonialism and those movements. Now when we talk about the Sikh community, there are two issues in the Sikh community. There are two major issues in the Sikh community. One is that the gurdwaras themselves, the mahants, were becoming too powerful. And second is that after the annexation of the Punjab sector, there was a need. They will not ask chronological order. That's too difficult to ask, because they all are in hundreds of close 50, 60 years they are operating. Now, this first, after annexation of the Sikh sector, it was important to understand that Sikhism needed to change a little bit. And second was later the Gurdwara issue. So after the death of Maharaja Ranjit Singh, as it is, the Sikh community went into disarray, and you have Baba Dayal Das, who will become the first reformer against the Sikh community. Till today, Baba Dayal Das's understanding exists, and they are called the Nirankaris. The Nirankaris. Basically, they believe that the idol worship of human guru should not be there. Rather, not even the dargahs or the khankas or anything related to the guru should be worshipped. It is the Guru Granth Sahib which should be worshipped. And there were certain practices which were there in the Sikh movement, which was in a way diluted by the Nirankaris. The most important contribution of the Nirankaris to the Sikh community is called the Anand Karat, which is a new way of marriages which were not very elaborate like the Hinduistic practices. And till today, most of the Sikh marriages happen under this concept, which is in the presence of the Guru Granth Sahib. There are certain hymns which are read out, and that is considered to be holy for that marriage itself. So the students who may be from the Sikh community would know that this is the standard practice which is followed today, and that was a Baba Dayal Das based understanding, wherein he reformed the ritualistic centric practice of marriages within Sikhs. Thereafter, you have the Namdhari or the Kuka movement. Kuka we will discuss again, because they are not properly into social reform movement. They are peasant and tribal both. The fact is that it will start as the Namdhari movement, also called the Kuka movement, because of two personalities. Baba Balak Singh is the most important in that regard. And Karat Simran, initially it was called Karanj or Anand Karaj. They are called Kuka because when they basically are going to, it's a war cry, which is called the Kukkan. So they will basically, when they go for any form of conflict, they have a certain war cry, and that is called Kukkan. That is why it's called the Kuka movement. After Baba Balak Singh, it was Baba Ram Singh who was very important when it comes to caste system, female infanticide, early marriages. All issues which were there in Hinduism was also there in Sikhism. So they needed to remove it. And he will also popularize the Anand marriages in that regard, which are very inexpensive marriages in that sense. Then starts Singh Sabha movement, and this is quite significant because Singh Sabha movement and the later Akali movement are two movements which changed Sikhism forever. Singh Sabha movement believed that the reason why the British were dominating, the Sikhs itself, was because of not having the right education. So it talked about, the Singh Sabha movement talked about education, Western education, being taken into the concept of Sikhism. So they again talked about, like Sayyid Ahmad Khan, that Sikhism needs to incorporate education so that we can move forward as a community. So this is again after the humiliation of the Sikhs under the hand of the British, that they wanted to change it. And there are two basic objectives which they had. One was that they should get benefited from Western enlightenment and modern education, but equally they wanted to oppose the conversion tactics of Christian missionaries. And herein comes the Arya Samaj, the Aligarh Ahmadiyya, or the Brahmo Samaj. Basically, they did not want the Sikh community to go into these new avenues or new, what we call as sabhas, which had increased. Arya Samaj and Singh Sabha movement created this tension wherein the Gurukul branch said that the Sikhs should come back into the Hindu community because there's a separate religion itself, and that will create a lot of friction in this area. And at one point, it will become a major issue in Punjab itself. The last is the Akali movement. This changed Sikhism forever, and till today you can see the important impact of it. It's called the Gurdwara Reform movement. So every Gurdwara was under what are called the Udasi Mahants. This is a hereditary position. These people, these Mahants used to basically run these Gurdwaras. But in the name of the Gurdwaras, they were basically running corruption or corrupt practices. They were diluting Sikhism, and they were basically, in a way, not respecting Sikhism as a religion. And therefore, there was a movement which started. And as these Mahants were also very, very loyalist to the British, they were loyalist to the British. They always used to say that, yes, there should be more intervention of the British in the Sikh community. So the Akali movement started as a way of they start basically adopted Gandhi's strategy of non-cooperation to go for what is called as the Sikh Gurdwaras Act, which is still today relevant. In 1922, after the Akali movement struggle against the Udasi Mahants itself, that in turn led to the organization called SGPC, Shivamani Gurdwara Prabandhak Committee, which still today controls all Gurdwaras, a apex body, an umbrella body, which basically controls all Gurdwaras and appoints the people who takes control of, or basically rather run these Gurdwaras in that sense. So this movement is not a communal one or related to a lot of social justice reform movement, but it is about reforming Sikhism and Gurdwaras. So Ahmadiyya, Titu Mir, Farizi, Devband, Wahhabi, Aligarh, that is Sikh Muslim. Singh Sabha, Nirankari, Kuka, and Aligarh and Akali are Sikh. This is basically the social reform movement for you. There's only one last person who is left, which is called the Sharda Act. It is named after a very important personality, which is he was the one who went for this concept of age of consent and or the age of women to marry and men to marry. That's called the Sharda Act. Other than that, there's nothing here. Now, is this difficult? No, it isn't. You just, I beg you, you try to make that table. You Nirankari are about not, see, in the Sikh community, there was also a faction which used to have the gurus' photos, and they used to have the idols of gurus. They said that gurus, the 10 gurus should not be done idol worship. Rather, we should go and worship the Guru Granth Sahib, the eternal Guru. And that is the basic contradiction. The basic point is it's a factual area. I can't do anything and I can't teach you anything. I'm telling you the context. You just do three things. Very simply, three things. Remember the organization. 13 are there in Hinduism. 5 are there in Muslim. 4 are there in what we call as Sikh. 1 is there in Parsis. Total 23 are there. Make a box, put all of it in that, and I can guarantee to you any prelims question can be answered from that box. And I have given you that much understanding of what the social justice reform movement is to answer the mains level question. Mains questions are also talking about Brahmo Samaj and Young Bengal movement, and that is a very important point. No, Sharda Act is not for Sikh communities, for general. Try to do it. Trust me, it will work. And because I am guilty of not making there. See, in tribal, you see, in tribal, I have actually done it for you. In tribal, I have literally made the boxes for you. You see, indigo and all is very easy. This is easy. In tribal movements, I have literally made the boxes for you. You see, I know where you will waste time is where you will actually save time. There, it is important to make that table because you learn in the process of doing it. In all tribal movements, I have made the box already for you. It is already there in the PPT. So where it can be made and it would be a waste of time for you, I have actually put it into boxes. Where it would is be very, very rewarding, it is important, I have actually asked you to do it. So think of it as an important process. 23 organizations, if you put it into a box, it will help you in remembering them. It will generally help you in understanding them. So I hope that you understand that I can make it, but then I learn it. It makes no sense. I want you to make it because it will help you in learning this area. If you don't do it, you will never learn this area. I'll give you a breather. That's not the point. The point is I'm finishing this module and I want you to understand that you don't run away from this module. Because, see, according to you, what is your grievance? It is heavy, it is lengthy. You are just telling us the names, you are telling us the ideology. But what else should I tell you? That is why I'm telling you, just make a box, put this information there and forget it. It's not that I did not warn you. This is also the same. This is also the same. Little bit of pain I told you is that this is the last model which is like this. So whatever your grievance, I get it. It's not heavy. It's just that it's descriptive. It is factual. What we all hate. I hate it also. So can we agree that now you know what to do? So we don't make table only copying your in present tribal, you don't have to make tables. Here I want you to make that box. Can we make box during live class? Are go and after the class open the annotated PPT, write the name of organization. How will you remember? Okay, that is a good question. How remember names foundation trick? Okay. 23 are there, yes or no? 23 are there. 23 total, let's take it 25. Round figure 25. If you learn one each day, how many days it will take you? 25. Then you learn 2 each day. Then you learn 3 each day. Within 2 to 3 months, you will remember all of them. Examination is not today. It is not tomorrow. I'm not asking you to learn them in one go. Learn one organization every day. You can do that. One organization. UPSC wants you to know them. I can't do anything about it. Make the table, learn one each day, and totally it will be manageable. Tribal, I've done it. Here it is important to do it. Revision is key to not just history, to all subjects. Geography, polity, economics, history, everywhere you have to go through this process. And I know your anger. I understand your anger. I can't do anything about that. I'll change the tone after this area is over. Then it will become very theoretical, easy, and logical. And I will go into timelines. I'll start to develop timelines. I will start to develop the concept of how the national movement is moving forward. Can I again now give you a breather and we come back and discuss peasant and tribal? Theoretical part. Prerna, to basically make it more formalized. Age of consent was for sexual intercourse. Here it is about age of marriage in that. Okay. Can I give you a breather? Everybody is alive. Little bit of pain. 2 hours. That is it. After that, there will not be there. But sir, as the part increases, it will be difficult to revise all every day. चेष्टा learn एक पर एक बस. One. Yeah, one. That is it. Nothing more, nothing less. One every day. Make it a concept. You will realize that after 2-3 cycles, you will automatically remember all of them. If you do it, it will be there. Arun, you email me, please. I don't know what is the issue. You email me, I'll get it sorted. And I have already told you, you can make this chat. I have already replied to, and this is testimony. I've already replied to, I think I got one from Rani, I got from Seema. One more person just emailed me about these tables. You can, if you can make it, want to show it to me, sure. Totally welcome. Yeah, Prerna, yes, Prerna. So, Mesak, again, listen to me. I know that you are correct. I know that you are correct. But the problem is that the information I picked up is from a UPSC based source. So I totally know what you're saying is correct. But unfortunately, I cannot write that name because in the source which UPSC is using, which is NCRTs and IGNU and all, it has been given this name. So get my compulsion, Mesha, in that regard. Okay. Every topic just need to read about organization content here. No. Only socialist reform movement. That's it. But there is 36 box of social reformers. Okay, 36 kar dete. So 36 days it will you will need. One each day still remains the same, right? See, there are two types of teachers. I could have easily said learn it, deal with it. I am trying to tell you it is not that difficult. Try to do it and you will automatically see it's not difficult. All 36 can be taken on hand, and as it is, UPSC has asked one question in last 5 years. So don't worry, UPSC is not asking questions from this area. So the real point is I have to reach till 1857 and I can't do that without these modules. So if we all are on the same page, you hate it, I know it, I hate it, can we now just start present tribal, end this pain as soon as possible? It is something, see, it's basically like saying that why do I need to learn articles? Why do I need to learn the names of forests or rivers or dams or mountains? It is needed and you can't do anything about it. Okay. Now, let's take a breather here. It's 7:30. I take it at 7:30. We come back at 7:40. Last 50 minutes, I want you to concentrate with me. Forget this. You will realize when I will do previous year questions with you, it is not that important. Friday, I will do all consolidated previous year questions. You will realize it's just a phase. It's just a phase. Let me move forward, and you will realize this is still not what UPSC is asking questions from. Constitutional development, economic history, these are, and I showed you the questions. Constitutional development, economic history, the concept of what we call as advent of Europeans, wars are much more important than this. Will they ask mains question? It will just be about what is their contribution or what is their goal or what is their ideology. Ironically, all of them have the same ideology, all of them have the same goal, and all of them are the same with regards to that. So any answer you write for one will be true for all of them. Clear, everyone? Okay, because the next discussion I have with you is very important, which is what is the nature of peasant and tribal and what is the problem in them. Okay. Wars are more important than this. In a way, wars, the treaties and war will be more important than this area, because out of this you will get one question. From that area now UPSC is asking at least 2 to 3 questions. After peasant tribal, we start 1857. 1857, then pre-INC organizations, INC, safety wall theory, moderates, extremists, Swadeshi, we move to Surat split. Thereafter, we'll go into the concept of how we move towards Home Rule League, Gandhi, what we call as South Africa experience, Champaran Kheda, Ahmedabad, 1919 Roll attack, Jallianwala Bagh. We will discuss thereafter the whole Swaraj is no changer issues. We will discuss NCM. We will discuss non-cooperation, Khilafat. That is the area where the questions are going to come from. After tomorrow, it is the real modules which matter. Please understand this point. That is the area which is directly quoted in the UPSC syllabus, which is Indian national movement. Okay. Take a break. Can't help it. Okay. See you. Welcome back. Alive? Yes, okay, very good. So, something else to kill you now, if you're still alive. Last painful section of the course, which is peasant and tribal. Once this is done, the pain is over. ये दुख खत्म क्यों नहीं होता? अब हो जाएगा. Don't worry. Now, we are starting a very important module. We are starting a very important module because it opens up a new door. We started with Mughal decline. Then we went to advent of Europeans. Thereafter, we saw expansion. And after expansion, what we see is consolidation. And in consolidation, we saw three pillars, which is education and constitutional development. Good, Syed. Thereafter, we did economic policy, and thereafter institutions. And for the past two classes, which may have given you a headache, we have been doing socio-religious reform, which is basically a response to moral justification of British. Now, in all of this, we forget something. In all of this, we forget something, which is that was there no resistance to the Raj? Was there no resistance to the Raj? That throughout this whole period, were we not rebelling? Were we taking it so lightly that we did not rebel? And therefore, we start a very important module which is called resistance to the Raj. There are two pillars here. One called 1857, and the second, which is called peasant and tribal rebellions. Peasant and tribal rebellions. And on this, by Friday, we will start nationalism. Now, the question is that if there was resistance to the Raj, what is the nature of their understanding? I hope you are understanding how we are progressing in our course. We are now discussing a fundamental thing that between 1765 to 1857 to 1870, was there no resistance at all? Was there no resistance at all? And the answer to that question is yes, there was. We resisted in different forms, and there were three ways in which we resisted. One are called rebellions, which is basically demands are generic related to colonial policy. The second one is called peasant movements, and they are basically related to the peasant issues. And last but not the least is tribal movements, which is basically related to tribal issues. However, there is something common to all of them. There's something common to all, which is their nature. Can I discuss the nature here? Raj means British Raj. Yes. Can I discuss the nature? Now, be it rebellion, be it peasant, or be it tribal, the first issue is that they are localized. They're localized, which is that they are region specific. They are region specific. So basically, they do not have something which is all India, pan Indian. No, it is localized. Pabana is happening, Indigo is happening, Deccan Rights is happening, Bengal it is happening in UP, it is happening in Deccan sector. But they have no connection to each other. Santhals will be fighting, the Kols will be fighting, the Mundas are going to fight, but they will not interact with each other. They are localized. And because they are localized, they embody local issues also. But the biggest issue is that all of them rebel against agents of colonialism and not colonialism itself. Not colonialism itself. What I mean by that is, there's a tree. There's a tree, and it has multiple branches. This tree is of colonialism, of British Raj. And there are certain people who benefited or became the face of colonialism. Zamindars, money lenders, British officers. You have what we call as ICS of, they are not ICS officers. You have tribal officers, or you call them local intermediaries. That is even better. You call them local intermediaries. Now, the point of these peasant and tribal and beat rebellion is they are trying to cut the branches, but they do nothing to the tree itself. They are attacking these branches, but by attacking branches, can you kill a tree? You cannot. So the problem is that ironically, there's an issue which is generated, be it, for example, peasant issue, be it a tribal issue or be it colonial policy, they identify it with zamindars, agents, money lenders, not understanding one thing, that these etc., these are created by colonialism, and they rather go to the British for intervention into these matters. So basically, they are asking colonialism to solve colonial issues and agents, solve or reform colonial issues and agents. Basically, very simply, the school is doing something bad, and you go to the principal and say that the teacher is not good. This is what they're doing. The school said that every student should have lunch. This is a principal. The board of control of that school has said that lunch hour should be only 20 minutes instead of 1 hour. Now, I, as the class teacher, will say to you only 20 minutes. Now, what you do is that rather than going to the principal, or rather than going to the board of the school, you beat up the teacher. But would beating up the teacher really solve the problem? And later you go to the principal and say, this teacher is the problem, change him. An organization does something, but the face takes the brunt. The face takes the brunt. This is called a myopic vision of colonialism. They are not understanding colonialism itself. In one of the peasant movements, the peasants pleaded to the queen that we are your subjects, help us. But ironically, it was the queen who was asking them to produce indigo at the rate which they were producing through the East India Company. So this is a very, very filmy way of understanding something. In movies, you would have seen that the villain is doing something through someone else, but you, rather than doing something about the villain, you go to the villain for help, thinking that the villain is fine. He is the one who will give me justice. And therefore, the biggest issue which they see, and see, you can't blame the peasant. The biggest issue which they see is, as soon as colonial intervention comes, they stop the movement. So they are not hitting colonialism, they're hitting colonial agents. And this is the beauty of colonialism by the British, unfortunate beauty, that they mask themselves in such a way that you always thought that the zamindar is a problem. But who gave the zamindar all the ownership right and asked 90% revenue from that person? Who gave that person that right? The British gave it. It is permanent settlement which made the zamindar so powerful. It is the permanent settlement. Cornwallis who did it. But a peasant, if he's sending a petition to Cornwallis saying that the zamindar is exploiting me, it is literally ironical. It's literally ironical that a peasant is sending Cornwallis a letter saying, I am being exploited by a zamindar. But ironically, isn't that the case? The tribals complain of or kill all the money lenders in their area. Except for Santal and Munda, which had a bigger understanding of colonialism. If the money lender is being killed and the British are being asked for something as an intervention, the money lender was sent there only by the British. Similarly, for example, in the Deccan, let's not even talk about Deccan. If we talk about the Indigo Revolt, which I will talk about with you tomorrow or today, whatever it may be, Indigo, Nij and Raiti system was created by whom? It was created by the British. And when the Bengal Indigo Act, or what is called the Bengal Agricultural Act, came through, the whole movement fizzed off. Same way, Deccan Relief Act, whole movement fizzed off. Fizzed off meaning slowly stopped. This is the difference between peasant and tribal movements and nationalism. That these movements were localized, but they were misdirected. And you can't blame the peasant or the tribal or the rebellions for being so myopic, because somebody needed to explain to them that what is basically happening at a pan-India level. And that is what Gandhi did, which is that Gandhi integrated the peasant in such a way that the peasant actually understood what was happening in India. So this is not a criticism. This is not a criticism. This is a observation. You can't blame the peasant for not having an understanding of colonialism, because the middle class intelligentsia, which is English educated, they have no understanding. They have no understanding. So do we understand the major and basic issue? So in the examination, if they ask you that what is the issue in the peasant and tribal movements in India, will you be able to articulate this? It is given in the PPT also. But conceptually, are you able to articulate this? That demanding relief from colonial authorities, reflecting the British successfully masking the colonialism. Yes. Asking the British for help against colonialism is basically masking colonialism through the intermediaries. Through the intermediaries. Understand this point. British Raj and colonialism is something which is much more rooted in the Indian society. They are targeting the branches, and cutting the branch would never cut the tree. So if we understand this, I'll do the first set of rebellions, and I will make one slide in which you can consolidate everything. I'll count all these movements with you, and I'll, unlike socialist reform movement where I want you to make something, I'll make this with you here. Can we do that? Okay. Perfect. Now, the first such movement is called the Sannyasi Rebellion. You can see it started even before the grant of Diwani was given. But the ironical part is that it was against something very, very, very standard, which is the British fear of India. See, sannyasis, fakirs, these are two rebellions. One is called the Fakir Uprising, the other one is called the Sannyasi Rebellion. The British basically feared sannyasis and fakirs quite a lot, basically saints. And the reason is because they travel around. sannyasis don't remain in the same place, because they travel around and because people are becoming more and more unemployed, and the sannyasi population was increasing in a way. They are seeing what is happening throughout India, or at least in that sector. And what the British did was that they tried to control their mobility. They tried to control their mobility, saying that you can't go from here to there, you need this permission, you need that permission. And when the sannyasis saw that the British is controlling their movement, they rebelled, raided, looted British factories. But sannyasis, in a way, created a precedence, which is that if you intervene in our own understanding, we will go after you. So we already know that Bengal famine is happening, eviction is happening quite a lot. So people are joining and becoming sannyasis and fakirs more and more. But when it came to controlling their mobility, which is movement, control mobility and movement, they rebel. They will raid the factories, treasuries. Warren Hastings basically was literally troubled by how sannyasis used to randomly come, loot and leave. The most important leaders in this is Majnun Shah, Musa Shah, Debi Chadurani. Debi Chodrani. Now, Fakir saint, same thing. Fakir is a Muslim saint, Sannyasi is a Hindu saint. Now, what we are going to do is that we are going to make a list here. Now, you please note Sannyasi rebellion against mobility laws, raided British leaders, Majnun Shah, Devi Chaudrani, and we can add any 2, 3. You can add Chirag Ali also. Chirag Ali. Ali. How can sannyasis loot? When you are going to, have you ever seen sannyasis with their trishuls in the Kumbh Mela? Imagine enticing and making them angry. Imagine the Shaivite and the Vaishnavite sannyasis and even fakirs. Imagine the power of these sannyasis when it came to challenging something. This is characteristic or feature. Whatever I'm writing there, you have to remember it. Now comes Fakir rebellion. And ironically, the person is the same. It was the Muslim religious mendicants, basically Muslim saints, not happy with colonial rule generally. Majnun Shah was the one who started it against, who were joined by farmers and zamindars later also. So they are against colonial policies. Person is Majnun Shah. Are you understanding what to do with this? Are you getting what to do with this information? It's all like this only. It's about condensing the information rather than expanding it. Okay, now you have the Pagalpanthis. Now, it's a religious sect started by Karam Shah, and it is his son Tipu Shah who basically became the one who organized a rebellion against zamindars and local agents, British agents. They included multiple types of tribes and even religions, and they were brutally suppressed by the British authorities, but their issues were more agrarian. So for our purpose of analysis, Pagal Panthis, Pagal Panthis, and you have against zamindars and British agents, Karam Shah, Tipu Shah. They are like get angry, they might curse, and they want sannyasis who loot. Again, you are trying to put in, you are not trying to understand. These sannyasis are literally looting, they're raiding. They will hit the British in a place where it will hurt, which is in their economic sphere. That's it. Yes, the Majnun Shah is common to sannyasi. He was a sannyasi, and Fakir rebellion comes out of that movement itself. Can we make this table? Basically, Saloni, I'm making this for you. You don't have to make a table here. I'm not doing it because here the information is very straightforward. There, I want you to do it because it's a critical area. Here, you don't expect a question with mains. It's a more prelims oriented area. Now, after the Pagalpanthis, we have a rebellion which happened over a very long period of time, which is called the Mopila rebellion. Mopila, Mapila, Malabari rebellion, whatever you want to call. Now, basically, the Mopila community in the Kerala sector, the Malabar sector, is a sector of Arab merchants, Arab traders, Muslim traders. When they settled down in the Malabar community in the Kerala sector, they were designated as Mopilas. And very simply, the British system reduced through their Rayatwari system because these Mopilas Muslims were mostly landlords or very big peasantry. They are reduced to basically tenants and leaseholders. So there's a reverse concept wherein in the north, Zamindars got strengthened, Mopilas got weakened. And with over-assessment, illegal cesses, and pro-landlord attitude of the state in the north, this was that if you have pro-landlord state in north, why not south? Why not south? Why are you destroying us? Why not south? And over this issue, there will be multiple rebellions. 22 times they will rebel. 36, 41, 49, 56. And by 1870, the British will basically quench them by giving certain concessions, but also a lot of repression. So for us, here you don't have to make a table. Only one unit I'm asking you to make a table. That is it. Against British agrarian policy and their land rights taken away. There's no leader specifically. Are you following what I'm trying to do here? Mopila, Bagalpanti, Fakir, Sannyasi. What it is directed towards? Who is the leader? That is what the most important discussion. Then we have the Kuka revolt, which we already discussed. They are the Namdharis, the Kukkan, and they were talking about purification of Sikhism, wore white and hand-woven clothes. But why are we discussing it? Because Ram Singh, the movement, was based on how they wanted to go against British intervention into Sikh politics. So the movement was about restoring power of the Sikhs in the Punjab sector, removing the foreign power. Later, he will be exiled and captured and sent to Rangoon, which is Myanmar. The point is that he was against British education and laws. So in the Kuka movement, British laws. And see, these are generic movements. That is, I hope you're understanding. These are called generic movements. This is the first set of movements, which are basically not very clear what are they trying to target. So against British laws in Punjab sector and humiliation. Baba Ram Singh. Okay. Are these rebellions somewhere interconnected? No. No, nothing at all. Nothing at all. No connection whatsoever. So I have discussed with you 5. Anybody has any issue in this? 5 done. No? Okay, perfect. Now, after Kuka, the mutiny which is never remembered but is actually the first mutiny before 1857, which is the Vellore mutiny. See, everybody talks about 1857. Mutiny is when the military rebels. It's called a mutiny. It is called the mutiny. Coup is when the military captures power. It's called a coup. You would have seen this word. Coup is when military captures power. Mutiny is when the army rebels. Army rebel. It is mutiny when military captures power. Capture power. Then it is coup. For example, in Pakistan, multiple coups have been there. Military coup it is called. Now, in even close to 51 years before, the Meerut regiment rebelled. Before that, the Calcutta regiment, the Barakpur regiment rebelled in 1857. There was a major mutiny in the south, which is called the Vellore mutiny, 1806. The commander-in-chief at this point of time was John Cardock, and William Bentinck introduced certain the P is silent here. They introduced certain rules which basically changed their caste markers. So they were said that you have to wear European turban, cannot wear earrings and caste markers, and racial antagonism had increased against the Europeans. And ironically, the mutineers, the soldiers, rebelled and unfurled Tipu Sultan's flag. Exact same pattern as what happened in north in Meerut, which is to come to Bahadur Shah Zafar. In their worldview, Futeh Haider, which was Tipu Sultan's first son, was their ruler, and they rebelled against the British, saying that we want Tipu Sultan back, or at least his son back. They will be brutally crushed by Colonel Gillespie. And there has been a criticism about the 1857 revolt that the South never rebelled. But you tell me that if every man who rebelled in 1806 was put in front of a cannon and shot through, would they want to repeat that in 1857? The criticism which stands is that South did not interact is actually baseless, because the South had already rebelled. The first rebellion was actually in Vellore. So understand this point, that 1857 is a copy of Vellore mutiny and not the other way around, because the pattern remains the same, which I will tell you. But unfortunately, Vellore mutiny would not have become bigger because there were no other regiments in the Madras presidency. So the families of the people who were shot dead in this by the British, for them, they knew what was going to happen. So remember that Vellore mutiny is the first mutiny in India, not 1857. Vellore mutiny, caste markers removed, racial discrimination, rebelled in name of Fateh Haidar, son of Tipu Sultan. 1806. Remember the year. Nowhere else the year matters. Here it matters. 1806. Thereafter, Veluthampi. Veluthampi was the Diwan of the King of Travancore. When the King of Travancore goes into subsidiary alliance, the British start to now take Travancore bit by bit. Veluthampi hated that. He rebelled and was later captured and killed by the British. One of you asked me about that there was no rebellion against subsidiary alliance. This is the rebellion against subsidiary alliance. But you can see the story is the same. Velu, Thampi, and sometimes it's like this also. Thambi. Thampi, Dhambi, rebellion, same thing. It's about matter of pronunciation. Against subsidiary alliance of Travancore, Velu, Thambi or Thampi, whatever you want to use the word. Udayarani is saying Thambi means brother. Very good. Very good. Thank you for that. Now, the Paika. Only 2, 3 more are left. After that, it's all 3 peasant and then tribal. Paika Ramusi, that's it. Paika rebellion. The Paikas as a community were employed under the Gajapati rulers, and when they gave military service, they were paid through rent-free land grants. Basically, when they get the land is theirs, and no rent is taken, no tax is taken. Now the company officers come and they very simply ask for rent. And if they will ask for rent, Bakshi Jagbandhu Vidyadhar did not like that. He fought and he was later captured and killed by the British. So he was a military chief of Khurda, which is basically under the Gajapati. This is all Deccan sector. But the Paikas is all Deccan. Gajapati rulers are Deccan India. Now, 8 Paika rebellion against British asking for revenue or tax on their tax-free land. Jagabandhu Vidyadhar. It is how it is written. Vidyadhar. Jagabandhu Vidyadhar. One second. The Odisha sector, the Deccan Odisha sector. I'm not using Odisha because that's not specific. Vidyadhar. Last, Ramosi rebellion. Last is Ramosi. Then we stop for today. I know you have a webinar. Ramosis were lower ranking Maratha army officers. Leader was Chittur Singh. When very heavy land assessment and revenue assessment is taken under the Mahalwari, first Rayatwari system, then even Mahalwari was applied here. Harsh collection methods, they will rise against the British under the banner of Umaji. However, when the British government will give them land grants and recruit them as hill police, it will stop. It will stop. So standard policy, Ramosi uprising, Chittur Singh against land revenue settlement and Chittur Singh. 9 I have discussed with you. Does anybody have any issue? I am literally making notes for you again because for somehow your life, your soul was living in socialist reform movement. So I'm back to doing what I should do or I shouldn't do, but I'm now literally bottle feeding. So simple point. Can we consider Velu Thampi as military revolts? You don't call them military revolts because not proper military. Simple, straightforward point. Why every time these rebellion kings are defeated, there's no unity. Obviously, they're not connected to each other. I'm showing you these 9. Can you learn these 9? You don't make a table, Mega. You just use the annotated PPT. That is it. You can remember these 9. 9 plus 3 total will become 12, and thereafter all tribal. So total 12 needs to be remembered. So thank you. See you tomorrow. This pain will be over. 1857 will start, and we will now transition towards nationalism. So just one and a half hours more, and now it will become simple. This is what I expect from you in socialist reform movement also. Social religious reform movement, this is what I expect from you. Simplify the data, it will become standard. This is rebellion, which are not specific. Right? Okay. See you tomorrow. Take care. You can now take a breather for 4 minutes and go to the webinar. All of them were defeated. All of them were defeated. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.